Hello and welcome back to Dracula. We are on assignment number 16 and we are almost done with this story. The question now is, are they going to catch Dracula before he gets back to Transylvania and home and to safety? I mean, remember, Professor Van Helsing talked about it and he said that land is full of caves and fissures and all these places that would be perfect for a vampire to hide out for. And remember, if Dracula can get to one of these places and hide there, he can spend hundreds of years sleeping, hibernating, so that he can wait until this whole threat is gone, that all these guys are dead. Mina is long dead. Mina is now turned into a vampire because remember, if they don't kill Dracula before she dies, then she becomes a full vampire. And they thought they had everything set up, that they were going to meet the boat in Varna. Everything was going to be easy peasy, right? But doesn't work out that way. It actually turns out they got that telegram yesterday that the ship lands in Galatz, not in Varna. So I wonder if Dracula, clearly Dracula does this because he knows he's being chased. So does he use the fog and whatnot to make it so that that ship couldn't have landed where it was? I mean, regardless of how it works out this way, now these gentlemen are in trouble as far as their plans don't match anymore. Now this ship is in a different place than where they had expected it to be. So let's pick it up today. We are on page 484 on the bottom of the page where it says Lord Godalming grew very pale and sat breathing heavily. I will pick it up from there. I'll read for 10, 15, 20 minutes, maybe 22. Your job is, of course, to read, if you're doing the online version, to the end of, to page 515 or to the end of the questions for assignment number 16. So please get that done and let's do it. So Lord Godalming grew very pale and sat breathing heavily. I was myself half stunned and looked in wonder at one after another. Quincy Morris tightened his belt with that quick movement which I knew so well. In our old wandering days, it meant action. Mrs. Harker grew ghastly white so that the scar on her forehead seemed to burn, but she folded her hands meekly and looked up in prayer. Harker smiled, actually smiled. The dark, bitter smile of one who is without hope. But at the same time, his action belied his words, for his hands instinctively sought the hilt of the great kukri knife and rested there. When does the next train start for Galatz? Said Van Helsing to us generally. At 6:30 tomorrow morning. We all started, for the answer came from Mrs. Harker. How on earth do you know? Said Art. You forget, or perhaps you do not know, though Jonathan does, and so does Dr. Van Helsing, that I am the train fiend. At home in Exeter, I always used to make up the timetable so as to be helpful to my husband. I find it so useful sometimes that I always make a study of the timetables now. I knew that if anything were to take us to Castle Dracula, we should go by Galatz, or at any rate through Bucharest, so I learned the times very carefully. Unhappily, there are not many to learn, as the only train tomorrow leaves as I say. Wonderful woman! Yes. If you're not from yours or mine. Even friend Arthur, go to the train and get the tickets and arrange that all be ready for us to go in the morning. Do you, friend Jonathan, go to the agent of the ship and get from his letters to the agent in Galatz with authority to make a search of the ship just as it was here. Quincy Morris, you see the vice consul and get his aid with his fellow in Galatz, and all he can do. I just lost my spot. Darn it, hold on a second. Hold on, I apologize. I'm sorry, guys, I pressed the wrong button. Right, just one more. Do you, friend Jonathan, go to the agent of the ship and get letters to go to Galatz with authority to make a search of the ship just as it was here. Quincy Morris, you see the vice consul and get his aid with his fellow in Galatz, and all he can do to make our way smooth so that no time be lost over the Danube. John will stay with Madame Nina and me, and we shall consult. For so if time be long, you may be delayed, and it will not matter when the sun sets, since I'm here with Madame Mina to make report. And I say, oh, that's actually smart. What he's saying is, let me stay with Mina because I can hypnotize her and we can find out more information. And I said, Mrs. Harker brightly, and more like her old self than she had been for many a long day, she'll try to be of use in all ways, and she'll think and write for you as I used to. Something is shifting for me in some strange way, and I feel freer than I have been of late. I wonder if that is because she feels a little more free. Is that because the Dracula, the vampire who's controlling her while she sleeps, is getting farther and farther away? Is he losing some of that power because he's farther away from her? The three younger men looked happier at the moment as they seemed to realize the significance of her words. But Van Helsing and I, turning to each other, met each a grave and troubled glance. We said nothing at the time, however. Maybe I'm wrong, because the doctors look at each other and they're like, I don't think it is better for you. When the three men had gone out to their tasks, Van Helsing asked Mrs. Harker to look up the copy of the diaries and find the part of Harker's journal at the castle. She went away to get it. When the door was shut upon her, he said to me, we mean the same. Speak out. So I think he got rid of her so they could talk about her. Here's some change. It is a hope that makes me sick, for it may deceive us. Quite so. Do you know why I asked her to go get the manuscript? No, said I, unless it was to get an opportunity of seeing me alone. You are in part right, friend John, but only in part. I want to tell you something, and oh, my friend, I'm taking a terrible risk, but I believe it is right. In the moment when Madame Mina said those words that arrest both our understanding, an inspiration came to me. In the trance of 3 days ago, the Count sent her a spirit to read her mind, or more like he took her to see him in his earth box in the ship with water rushing, just as it go free at rise instead of sun. He learned that we are here, for she have more to tell in her open life with eyes to see and ears to hear than he, shut as he is in his coffin box. Now that he make his most effort to escape us, at present he want her not. I think I understand what this man just said. I think he just realized that Dracula can use Mina to find out their plans. In other words, when he goes into her mind when she's sleeping, he can root through all her memories and knowledge of what the guys are doing, what the gentlemen are doing, what their plans are exactly, and then he can work around those plans. So if that is true, and Dracula can find out what Mina knows, then the best thing they can do is to stop telling Mina their plans so that she is not able to then give that information to Dracula. Not like she gives it, that's the wrong way of saying it. So that Dracula is unable to take that information out of her mind. I believe that's what's going on now. Let's continue. He is sure with his so great knowledge that she will come at his call, but he cut her off, take her as he can do out of his own power, that so she cannot come to him. And it's not because they're farther away. He knows that she can find out information about him, so he has cut the link between them. But he will pick that link up again when he wants to find out information about them. There I have hope that our man brains that have been of man so long and that have not lost the grace of God will come higher than his child brain that lie in a tomb for centuries, that grow not yet to our stature, and that they do only work selfish and therefore small. Here comes Madame Mina, not a word to her of her trance. She knows it not, and it would overwhelm her and make despair just when we want all her hope, all her courage, when most we want all her great brain, which is trained like a man's brain, that is of a sweet woman and have a special power which the Count gives her, and which he may not take away altogether, though he think not so. Hush, let me speak and you shall learn. Oh, John, my friend, we are in awful straits, I fear, as I have never feared before. We can only trust a good God. Silence. Here she comes. I thought that the professor was going to break down and have hysterics, just as he had when Lucy died, but with a great effort, he controlled himself and was at perfect poise when Mrs. Harker tripped into the room, bright and happy looking, and in the doing of work, seemingly forgetting of her misery. As she came in, she handed a number of sheets of typewriting to Van Helsing. He looked over them gravely, his face brightening up as he read. Then, holding the pages between his finger and thumb, he said, Friend John, to you with so much experience already, and you too, dear Madame Mina, that are young, here is a lesson. Do not fear ever to think. A half-thought has been buzzing often in my brain, but I fear to let him loose his wings. Here now, with more knowledge, I go back to where that half-thought come from, and I find that he be no half-thought at all. That be a whole thought, though so young that he is not yet strong to use his little wings. Nay, like the ugly duck of my friend Hans Andersen, he be no duck though at all, but a big swan through that sail nobly on big wings when the time come for him to try them. See, I read here what Jonathan have written. Oh my God, that was a really long way of saying he's got an idea. That other of his race who in a later age again and again brought his forces over the great river into Turkey land, who when he was beaten back came again and again and again, though he had to come alone from the bloody field where his troops were being slaughtered, since he knew that he could alone ultimately triumph. What does this tell us? Not much? No. The Count's child thought see nothing, therefore he speaks so free. Your man thought see nothing. My man thought see nothing till just now. No. But there comes another word from some who speak without thought, because she too know not what it might mean. Just as there are elements which rest, yet when in nature's course they move on their way and they touch, the poof, and there comes a flash of light, heaven wide, that blind and kill and destroy some. But that show up all earth below for leagues and leagues. Is it not so? Well, I shall explain. To begin, have you ever studied the philosophy of crime? Yes and no. You, John, yes, for it is a study of insanity. You know, Madam Mina, for crime touch you not but once. Still your mind works true, and argues not a particularity ad universal. There is the peculiarity in criminals. It is so constant in all countries and at all times that even police, who know not much from philosophy, come to know it empirically that it is to be empiric. The criminal always work at one crime. That is the true criminal who seems predestinate to crime and who will have none other. This criminal has not full man brain. He is clever and cunning and resourceful, but he not much of man stature as to brain. He be of child brain and much. Now, this criminal of ours is predestinate to crime also. He too have child brain, and it is of the child to do what he have done. The little bird, the little fish, the little animal learn not by principle, but empirically. And when he learned to do, then there is to him the ground to start from to do more. Dos pausto, said Archimedes. Give me a fulcrum, and I shall move the world. To do once is the fulcrum whereby child brains become man brain, and until he have the purpose to do more, he continued to do the same again every time, just as he had done before. Okay. Long way of saying, he's saying that even though this guy's been around for hundreds of years, he still acts like a child in many ways because he's alone all the time. He doesn't learn the same way we do. And he's saying because of that, he's destined to continue to make the same mistakes over and over until he learns a different way of doing it. So let's see if he figures something out. I see that your eyes are opened and that to you the lightning flash shows all the leagues. For Mrs. Harker began to clap her eyes and her eyes sparkled. Her hands and her eyes sparkled. He went on. Now you shall speak. Tell us, two dry men of signs, what you see with those so bright eyes. He took her hand and held it whilst he spoke. His finger and thumb closed on her pulse as I thought instinctively and unconsciously as she spoke. Okay, so he described to them the fact that if you just think and really think through all the facts, you are going to realize that we can figure something out here. And he says, you're going to have that light bulb moment where, bam, you understand. And Nina has had that light bulb moment, he believes. And let's see what she says. The Count is a criminal of a criminal type. Nordau and Lombroso would so classify him. And qua criminal, he is of an imperfectly formed mind. Thus, in a difficulty, he has to seek resource in habit. His past is a clue, and the one page of it that we know, and that from his own lips, tells that once before, when in it what Mr. Morris would call a tight place, he went back to his own country from the land he had tried to invade, and thence, without losing purpose, prepared himself for a new effort. Aha! So, in Jonathan's notes, he describes how Count Dracula told him a long time ago he was battling the Turks and he got his butt kicked. So he went back to his castle, licked his wounds, metaphorically, as they say, got himself strong again before he would go back out and try it again. So using that logic, now that he has been beaten back by them, where is he going to go? He's going to go back to his castle in Transylvania in order to strengthen himself again and then come out and try it again. He came better equipped for his work and won. So he came to London to invade a new land. He was beaten, and when all hope of success was lost and his existence in danger, he fled back over the sea to his home, just as formerly he had fled back over the Danube from Turkey land. Good, good, oh, you so clever lady, said Van Helsing enthusiastically as he stooped and kissed her hand. A moment later, he said to me as calmly as though we had been having a sick room consultation, 72 only, and in all this excitement, I have hope. Turning to her again, he said with keen expectation, but go on, go on. There is more to tell if you will. Be not afraid. John and I know. I do in any case, and shall tell you if you are right. Speak without fear. I will try to, but you will forgive me if I seem too egotistical. Nay, fear not. You must be an egotist, for it is of you that we think. Then, as he is a criminal, he is also selfish. And as his intellect is small and his action is based on selfishness, he confines himself to one purpose. That purpose is remorseless. As he fled back over the Danube, leaving his forces to be cut to pieces, so now he is intent on being safe, careless of all. So his own selfishness frees my soul somewhat from the terrible power which he acquired over me on that dreadful night. I felt it. Oh, I felt it. Thank God for his great mercy. My soul is freer than it has been since that awful hour. And all that haunts me is a fear lest in some trance or dream he may have used my knowledge for his ends. Oh, so she figured it out. So she says, now I know that he's trying to get away from us, so he has cut off this link with me in a way. But she does say at the end, geez, I hope he didn't take a lot of information from my brain about our plans. The professor stood up. He has so used your mind, and by it he has left us here in Varna, whilst the ship that carried him rushed through envelope and fog up to Galatz, where doubtless he had made preparation for escaping from us. So he said, Van Helsing goes, yep, actually, he did use you. And it was, he used your brain, knew that we were going to go to Varna, so he made it so that he landed in Galatz because he's working against us. And it may be that as either ever is in God's providence, the very thing that the evildoer most reckoned on for his selfish good turns out to be his chiefest harm. The hunter has taken in his own snare, as the great Thomas says. For now he thinks he is free of every trace of us all, and that he has escaped us with so many hours to him, then his selfish child brain will whisper him to sleep. So what they're saying is, now that the Count believes he has duped them, See, the Count doesn't know that they have figured out he's actually in Galatz, right? They don't know that he has they have all these contacts with all these shipmen and sailors. He doesn't know that they know this. So because of that, they have time because he's going to take his time getting back to the castle because he believes he has that time. So they have an advantage. They now know that he's in Galatz, but Dracula doesn't know they know. Let's continue. He thinks, too, that as he cut himself off from knowing your mind, there could be no knowledge of him to you. There is where he fails. That terrible baptism of blood which he gave you makes you free to go to him in spirit, as you have yet done your times of freedom when the sun rises and set. So he cut off their communication, but he doesn't realize that she can still communicate with him during the times of sunrise and sunset if she is hypnotized. At such times you go by my volition and not by his. And this power to good of you and others, you have won from your suffering at his hands. This is now all more precious that he knows it not, and to guard himself, have even cut himself off from his knowledge of our wear. We, however, are not selfish, and we believe that God is with us through all this blackness and these many dark hours. We shall follow him, and we shall not flinch. Even if we peril ourselves, that we become like him. Friend John, this has been a great hour, and it have done much to advance us on our way. You must be scribe and write them all down, so that when the others return from their work, you can give that nation. So he says, basically, we have figured this out. The Count doesn't realize that we have figured it out. So we have this advantage. We are going to chase him. And you know what? If we fail and he turns us into one of him, at least we tried our best. You got to love Van Helsing. He says, we're going to do what we have to do. And so I have written it whilst we wait their return. And Mrs. Harker has written with a typewriter all since she brought to MS to us. Chapter 26, Dr. Seward's Diary, October 29. This is written in the train from Varna to Galatz. Last night, we all assembled a little before the time of sunset. Each of us had done his work as well as he could, so far as thought and endeavor and opportunity go. We are prepared for the whole of our journey and for our work when we get to Galatz. When the usual time came around, Mrs. Harker prepared herself for hypnotic effort, and after a longer and more serious effort on the part of Van Helsing than has been usually necessary, she sank into the trance. Usually she speaks on a hint, but this time the professor had to ask her questions, and to ask them pretty resolutely before we could learn anything. At last her answer came. I can see nothing. We are still. There are no waves lapping, but only a steady swirl of water softly running against the hawser. I can hear men's voices calling near and far, and the roll and creak of oars in the rowlocks. A gun is fired somewhere. The echo of it seems far away. There is tramping of feet overhead, and ropes and chains are dragged along. What is this? There is a gleam of light. I can feel the air blowing upon me. She stopped. She had risen as if impulsively from where she lay on the sofa and raised both her hands, palm upwards, as if lifting a weight. Van Helsing and I looked at each other with understanding. Quincy raised his eyebrows slightly and looked at her intently, whilst Harker's hands instinctively closed around the hilt of his kerchief. There was a long pause. We all knew that the time when she could speak was passing, but we felt that it was useless to say anything. Suddenly she sat up, and as she opened her eyes, said sweetly, "Would none of you like a cup of tea? You must all be so tired." We could only make her happy, and so acquiesced. She bustled off to get tea. When she had gone, Van Helsing said, "You see, my friends, he is close to land. He has left his earth chest, but he has yet to get on shore. In the night he may lie hidden somewhere, but if he not be carried on shore, or if the ship do not touch it, he cannot achieve the land." Remember, vampires cannot cross water. They need to be carried over the water by somebody else, or he needs to cross directly from the ship onto land. He can't go on a little boat that carries him over, kind of like they had in the Rime of the Ancient Mariner, that pilot boat, a little boat that carries you from ship to land. He has to step off directly from land to ship or be carried over. Listen. And if he be carried, then in such case, if it be night, change his form and jump or fly on shore. Then unless he be carried, he cannot escape. So in the night, he can fly on shore because he can change into a bat. But during the day, he is stuck on that ship. And if he be carried, then the customs men may discover what the box contains. Thus, in fine, if he escapes not on shore tonight or before dawn, there will be the whole day lost to him. We may then arrive in time. For he escape not at night, we shall come on him in daytime, boxed up and at our mercy. For he dare not be his true self, awake and visible, lest he be discovered. There was no more to be said, so we waited in patience until the dawn, at which time we might learn more from Mrs. Harker. Early this morning, we listened with breathless anxiety for her response in her trance. So now they're trying to figure out, is he still on that ship? If he's still on the ship, they know he's trapped for the day in his form. The hypnotic stage was even longer in coming than before, and when it came, the time remaining until full sunrise was so short that we began to despair. Van Helsing seemed to throw its whole soul into the effort. At last, in obedience to his will, she made reply. All is dark. I hear lapping water level with me, and some creaking as of wood on wood. She paused, and the red sun shot up. We must wait till tonight. And so it is that we are traveling towards Galatz in an agony of expectation. We are due to arrive between 2 and 3 in the morning, but already at Bucharest we are 3 hours late, so we cannot possibly get in until well after sunup. Thus we shall have 2 more hypnotic messages from Mrs. Harker. Either or both may possibly throw more light on what is happening. Later. Sunset has come and gone. Fortunately, it came at a time when there was no distraction, for it had occurred whilst we were at a station. We might not have secured the necessary common isolation. Mrs. Harker yielded to the hypnotic influence even less readily than this morning. I am in fear that her power of reading the Count's sensations may die away just when we want it most. It seems to me that her imagination is beginning to work. While she has been in the trance hitherto, she has confined herself to the simplest of facts. If this goes on, it may ultimately mislead us. If I thought that the Count's power over her would die away equally with her power of knowledge, it would be a happy thought, but I'm afraid that it may not be so. All right, I am done, ladies and gentlemen, reading for today. I'm at the very, very bottom of page 495 on the online version. You're going to start in that paragraph on the bottom of page 495 where it says, when she did speak, her words were enigmatical. Something is going out. You're going to pick it up from there, and of course, you're going to read to the end of page 515 to finish assignment number 16. Or of course, if you're reading from another source or listening from another source, you're just going to answer all those questions for assignment number 16. So now we're going to see, do they catch the Count in time, or is he going to get away? We will find out at the end of this and in next assignment. We'll see what happens. Is Mina going to be saved? Is her soul going to be saved? Everybody have a lovely day. Thank you very much for your time and your patience.